Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Home Tech. I'm Seth Johnson. Jason, how's it going, man?
It's going great, Seth. What are you up to these days?
Busy moving, but last night we took a night off and went to one of those Cinebistro things. Have you heard of those?
I have. Yes, I'm familiar with what you're referring to.
Yeah. So if anybody doesn't know, it's a cool little it's a theater, right? So I'm assuming that everybody listens to Home Tech likes home theater of some type. But this is the real deal. This is a theater for adults. So you get mixed drinks. You can get popcorn and champagne if you'd like. You can get a full 5-course meal if you wanted. Very, very good. Very good.
Very nice.
Yeah, you get the big comfy seats too, like you'd have in a home theater.
I don't know what I should ask you first. What you saw or what you ate?
Well, what we saw was kind of funny. We saw that the movie Get Hard.
Oh, okay.
Which
all right.
I don't know if I can recommend, but I can definitely recommend the Tabasco steak frites, which is
very good.
Yeah, it was very good. And the Negroni. The Negroni. I don't know if anybody likes cocktails, but I like Negronis quite a bit. And
that's a beer, isn't it?
No, that's the Negroni is a mixed drink. It's an Italian. I believe an Italian mixed drink. It has a lot of has gin in it, basically, some Campari, I believe, and vermouth. So it's an old cocktail, kind of like an old fashioned. But I love those things. I really love bitter drinks, and that's one of them.
All right. Well, this is a technology show, not a mixology show, right?
Yeah. So well, I could talk talk a while on that. So.
Oh, as could I. Yeah, I think it's cool that theaters are doing that. I guess they've really, in a sense, had to innovate a little bit with all the advances in home theater technology and how much more comfortable and convenient and entertaining it's gotten to actually sit and watch a movie at home now. The theaters have had to be a little bit creative and innovative as well. I was actually reading an article this week about IMAX launching with the new laser projection systems out here in Los Angeles, and that sounds really, really cool. I definitely want to try to find some time to go catch a show at one of those theaters. So it sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes going to the theater kind of one of those a destination type thing. We're kind of in our family, we really like to hit the theater. It can get ridiculous. I mean, sometimes we're there 3-4 times a month.
Nice.
But sometimes we're, just once a month or so. But
yeah. Well, anyways, we've got a lot to cover here. Do want to mention that we had Franz Garsombke on from Rachio this episode, and it was actually an interview between just myself and Franz. Seth had some scheduling conflicts, so you weren't able to join us. But I had a great time chatting with Franz. I think Rachio is the name of the company, and the product is actually called Irrigation. It's like a smart irrigation controller. Very cool product, really solves like a real world problem in terms of water conservation. They're a company based out in Denver, and I know from in the past, having lived out in that area, that water is a major concern out there, and I really like what those guys are doing. So I had a good time chatting with Franz, and we look forward to sharing that conversation.
Yeah. It's from what I understand, it's a pretty big topic where you are currently living too.
Absolutely. Yes, you're right. It's everywhere, really. Yeah.
I mean, it's here in Florida, kind of the same thing. We have a bit of a different problem with salt water, where with the oceans rising and everything, the salt water kind of creeps into the freshwater supply. So we have that problem as well.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, a couple news stories we want to touch on, a couple follow-up items as well. But before we jump into those, again, we just want to give a shout out to a few more patrons. For anybody listening who may not have heard yet or may not be familiar, we launched a page on Patreon, which is essentially like a crowdfunding site where it allows our listeners, if they find the show entertaining or valuable, to go over there and become a patron of the show. And you can do that for as little as $1 a month. Just help buy us a couple cups of coffee, right, to get through those late night editing sessions and what have you. And we really appreciate it. We've had some people get involved there, and per our word, we want to give a special shout out to those who have contributed at that $5 a month mark. And we had Chris Pinder, who was a guest on our show at one point from HD Anywhere. He contributed $5 a month, signed up for that. So Chris, we really appreciate it. As well as our guest from last week's episode, Cody Crossland, came on at that $5 level as well. And And we really, truly appreciate it. We've had a number of other people sign on at the dollar a month level, and whatever you can do is truly appreciated, and it really helps.
Yeah, the link to find the patron page, if you just go to HomeTech.fm/support or click the menu item at the top, that'll get you there. And if you can't give anything, really all we really need you to do is run over to iTunes and give us a rating on there. Whether good or bad doesn't matter, that's how people find the show. And
Yep.
that helps us out as well. So Patreon or iTunes ratings, either one of those, be good.
Yeah, perfect. Well, so speaking of a couple of follow-up items, Seth, I think you had one or two thoughts on, we had talked about this new Savant host recently, and I think you were sort of comparing and contrasting that with the Control 4 HC250.
I went a little upstream from that. I was comparing it to the HC800.
Okay.
I found a review from someone, digitalsmarthomes.com, put a review up for a comparison between the Savant Smart Host and a Control 4 HC250, which is the smaller of the two Control 4 controllers. And side by side, I mean, just looking at the specs, it makes it even more of a tough sell on the Savant side. I think Control 4 has them licked.
Yeah, I think that, it's one of those things where, like you said, when you look at the tech specs, I'll admit, I think when I look at that chart, it looks like Control 4 kind of has the edge purely on the hardware side. But like, as you well know, and as most everybody listening, it really does come down to more than just the tech specs. And so, something you can't account for on like a comparison chart is the user experience. And having worked with both systems, particularly with Savant's recently updated user interface, I got to give them the edge there, at least as it stands right now.
Yeah, and I guess that's really what matters at the end of the day is the end user experience. While Control 4 isn't that bad, it certainly does have some room for improvement as far as UX goes. And Savant, I mean, from what I've played around with and what I've seen, I mean, obviously, you and I both saw that one at CEDIA. We both really liked it. And I think that they've got kind of the advantage there, but it's one of those things like, how long do you give someone an advantage for having a better interface? Like Control 4 could easily come back and hit an update on theirs. And, it's one of those.
It's constantly evolving.
Yeah. So I don't know. It still looks pretty good, right? I mean, for Savant coming down, because I know that their other controllers were quite a bit more than $1,000, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. And like we had talked about, when we discussed this last time, you always, up until the release of this latest one, you also had to buy like a separate piece of hardware if you wanted any IOs. So anything like IR ports, 232 ports, relays. Prior to this host, none of that was included. So this is the kind of their first host that has sort of that. It's an all-in-one type of solution. There was a couple of other just quick follow-up points that I wanted to touch on the Savant host that we sort of, I don't want to say got wrong, but maybe weren't totally accurate. We had talked about the Savant host including Z-Wave, which is partially true, but what we didn't point out at the time, what I actually didn't realize at the time, is that that's only enabled through a separate bridge. So there is like a second piece of hardware that you would have to get to do that, and I was unable to find any specific information on that. So that seems to me like it's a kind of a future only, more of like a Z-Wave ready piece than it is like a Z-Wave piece. Yeah,
and I would attribute that to the article being quite cryptic.
Yeah,
because I didn't catch that either, and I know we both try and read these as much as we can, and we don't try and read into the article very much, but it did seem to say like Z-Wave would be supported, but they're using another third-party device just like Control 4 does. So
yeah, and the other thing is we were tweeting about this actually just today before we were recording. I was tweeting on my personal Twitter handle that comparison chart that you had put up, and Julie Jacobson from CE Pro actually chimed in, and looks like that comparison chart alludes to the Savant host having Bluetooth low energy. I think that's a mistake. I think the Bluetooth low energy thing maybe came from a reference to the new Switch keypad products that Savant had also come out with. But according to Julie Jacobson, the host itself does not have Bluetooth. So that was just one other thing I wanted to point out here.
All sorts of confusion around this one.
Yeah. Well, new product, it happens.
Yeah, absolutely. We have one more quick follow-up. We had a little bit of feedback from our dash button debate last week. Mark Childs, one of longtime listener and friend of the show, supporter of the show.
Yep.
Sent us a tweet, I think, saying something about the dash button and DRS.
Yeah, so I had kind of tweeted out about our debate, and I was saying, okay, this is the internal debate we're having. Is the dash button, is Amazon Dash a smart home product, or is it just like a button that lets you buy stuff? And basically, Mark Childs responded with what was a very, very good point and I think an important distinction. That is that the Amazon Dash is actually sort of comprised of a couple of different parts. And for the context of our conversation, it's important to distinguish between those. So you have Dash replenishment services, which is DRS, and that's kind of where all the intelligence happens. And then you have the Dash button, which is like basically just a little button that goes on your network and talks, I guess, to the DRS API is kind of how you would put it. So his response was like, DRS is a smart home product. The Dash button is not. And I think that's kind of an important distinction because it ties back to that whole argument of like something being controllable, meaning I can turn it on or off or hit a button and have it do something, versus something being intelligent where it's actually, making those decisions for you. So the example in this case would be like a dishwasher or maybe a coffee maker that was tied into the DRS API that could just sort of monitor your level of supplies and then automatically, without you having to do anything, make sure that you're replenished before you run out.
Yeah, that's good for Amazon for having developed this, because I think there will be many, many products here in the future that will lean heavily on this. I'm going to be interested to see how much they open that particular service up. There are a ton of things that run on Amazon Web Services, AWS and EC3 out there right now. And I wonder if they would open that up for even further integration where, brands like Whirlpool or Keurig could kind of have their own generic DRS service, right? So they could
like
kind
a white label.
Yeah, white label it and brand it themselves. Yeah, I'm wondering where this could all go, because Amazon definitely has been open to that in the past. So yeah, I'm just it seems like a pretty cool product, and I don't want to spend too much time on a follow-up piece, but
that's an interesting observation. Yeah. I mean, it does segue into one of our a couple of news stories here we wanted to touch on are about Amazon, and basically there was one story this week. Amazon Echo is now becoming a home automation hub, Seth.
I was ready.
We've been looking forward to an opportunity to ring that bell. I feel like it's been a while.
Yeah, and I think we've been we've kind of actually taken some criticism over the last couple of months as people were thinking that Amazon Echo was a home hub, but there was really no tie-in for home automation or talking to other products outside of the Amazon services, right? Like you could say, hey, order me some diapers or whatever, and it would do that.
Or ask about the weather, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there wasn't a lot to it.
But now it looks like they've added voice control for other products, and like the Belkin Wemo devices and Philips Hue lights. And I think at that point, this becomes officially becomes a hub for the home, right?
Yeah. And, I think most people who are watching this and kind of watch the smart home market probably assumed that something like this was coming when the Echo was first announced. Because like in its first iteration with the features that they were listing, it just seemed like, why go to the trouble of putting this product out if it can only like tell you what the weather is or give you a voice activated way to order more diapers. It's like you kind of knew that there had to be more to it. So this makes perfect sense. I know that they recently announced an SDK for the Echo, so a software development kit. I think we're probably going to see a lot more movement on this if Amazon can get some developers behind it, get them into that development environment and really build their products to be, compatible with the Echo. I think it makes perfect sense for Amazon. Obviously remains to be seen if end users will adopt it or not.
Yeah. I mean, and with a product like this, if you say hey, Alexa, turn on my lights. It can just say, well, you don't have any lights I can turn on. Do you want me to add those to your shopping cart? And now with Amazon Home Services, they can have somebody come out and install them for you too, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's that was the other kind of piece we wanted to touch on related to Amazon is this, the home services. And this I think is something that's important for, particularly for the integrators in our audience to be paying attention to, because, basically what Amazon is getting into now is the ability, instead of just being able to go onto their website and buy physical products like a TV and maybe a mount for that TV, while you're at it, you can also buy somebody to come out and hang the TV for you. And I think that, from Amazon's perspective, it makes perfect sense. People spend a lot of money on services. And so Amazon is looking to, kind of cash in on that and get their piece of that pie.
Yeah, I mean, there have been a number of these types of services out there in the past that popped up during I want to say they popped up right before, during the recession. I know a lot of people that were going out and setting up TVs, just to keep their guys busy, and they were teaming up with, like, I think Sears was doing this. I'm trying to remember, there were a couple of companies like Sears and maybe Target had their own, you could buy a TV hang for X amount of dollars and somebody would come out and do it. But I know from what I remember, there wasn't much, you couldn't make much money off of doing this. And I think it would be hard for custom integrators to get involved with that type of business, because I don't think they pay you like for everything, right? They don't pay you.
I think it's, basically it would be like a loss leader almost. You would kind of be hoping to get leads out of it, and you're not going to make a whole lot of money going out and just hanging a TV for a client, but maybe you'll get there and they'll say, oh, I have this this need for distributed audio in my house, and you can at that point maybe upsell them. I don't know how that would work in terms of like the agreement with Amazon services. Like, is there some sort of contract or something that you have to sign with them that they get their cut of whatever you do? Who knows? I do know that they take, I was reading, it looks like 20% of standard services, 15% on custom, and 10% on recurring services. Whatever those categories mean, I'm not really sure. And that was actually just, I guess, not speculation, but that was like on the beta version of the platform. So that came from The Verge. I don't think, at least what I was reading, it didn't say that for sure, but I think that kind of gets you in the ballpark. I mean, you're looking at basically giving Amazon a 10 to 20% cut of whatever business you get off of there. But like you said, it could be good for a small to medium size operation that's just looking to kind of get their name out in front of more customers. And I think if you can get your business listed on there, it certainly doesn't hurt anything, right? Like, you don't have to take the work that comes to you from there. I think it's something that's important for integrators to look at, especially, maybe if you're just getting into the home automation business. We get, periodically get emails from listeners who are saying, oh, I've decided I'm moving over from like the IT space, right? And I want to start like my own home automation service company. Where do I start? How do I find clients? This could be a great place to get started. And so we'll include in the show notes a link to where you can go if you want to apply to have your business listed on there. I do know that they're trying to be very selective as far as like how many vendors they're going to, grab in each market, in each category sort of thing. So they're not just like opening up the floodgates and letting anybody do it. You've got to be licensed, insured, pass a background check, all that sort of stuff. But we'll include the link and people can go check it out. I think it's definitely worth looking into.
Yeah, and for a lead, 10 to 20% really isn't that bad if it leads to something else, or if it's a quick in and out, keep your guys busy type of work. I mean, it's not a bad thing either.
Yeah, there was one other point I wanted to touch on this, and our friend Mike Wolf had written an article about this home services, and basically the question he was asking was, will a service like this finally usher the smart home into the mainstream? With that in mind, I was poking around Amazon services, and I was trying, Amazon home services, and I was like trying to find, if I was a client and I wanted to have somebody come over and install my smart home product, like, where do I go? And surprisingly, I couldn't find like the term smart home or home automation really listed anywhere on home services. Like the closest thing I was able to find was, home theater, set up your Wi-Fi network, hang a TV, stuff like that, which for guys like us in the industry, we know that pretty much, if you're looking for an integrator, you can look for a home theater guy. It's almost like the same thing, but a lot of consumers may not know that. You know what I mean? And I just thought it was interesting that like I really couldn't find anything on it. The only mention that I did find that was even close to like smart home was like buried down in this paragraph, kind of at the bottom of a page. And, it basically said, we'll help you take care of the systems at the heart of your home with service offerings for air duct cleaning, dryer vent cleaning, furnace tune-up, air conditioner installation, gas fireplace tune-up, and Amazon Home Services can help you find a pro to install a high-tech thermostat or basic light switch and everything in between. That was about the closest mention that I could find to smart home, which I just thought was surprising and worth pointing out.
Yeah, duct cleaning and smart homes, just about the same thing.
Yeah, I was like, and literally the way I found that was just by doing a search on the page for thermostat. I was like, I wonder if they have anything related to like the Nest, because that's such a popular product. And so I just did like a Command F on the page and typed in thermostat, and it snapped down to the very bottom of the page, almost at the very bottom, tucked into a large paragraph. So I just thought that was interesting. It certainly doesn't look like the smart home or home automation are anything that they're really emphasizing. It's a very broad offering for anything from plumbing to hanging a TV, but smart home doesn't seem to be by any means a focus for them.
Well, I mean, they're a big company and they certainly offer a broad range of products. So I can see them wanting to take that particular route and try and get as large of an audience as they possibly can. But I can see why you were searching for under the thermostat page, because it looks like your Ecobee thermostat has an update and you may want to get that installed again.
Yeah, no, I know. And like for reasons I'm not going to go into on this particular episode, but we'll go there soon. So stay tuned. Reasons I'm not going to go into here. I still don't have it installed, which I'm now even more bummed about because they finally released an update, and we're not going to spend too long on this. But it's an important point because it's something like way back when I had first got the thermostat, we had talked about it on the show. I had pointed out something that really disappointed me. And that was the fact that, a big reason why I went with Ecobee was the addition of, the inclusion, I should say, of these little wireless sensors that you can place throughout your home or apartment. So it actually can kind of sense the temperature in multiple rooms and do what it can to kind of normalize that. Obviously, with a single zone system like I have, you're limited. But at least I'd have the ability to monitor temperatures in multiple rooms, which was very important to me because we had just, given birth to our daughter. And that was kind of the whole driving thing was like, I want to make sure the temperature where she sleeps is kind of staying consistent. Well, what I found out after buying it was that you couldn't view the temperature of those remote temp sensors anywhere other than on the thermostat itself. So you had to go to the thermostat and browse through the menu system in order to get to that temperature reading. It did not display on the app, which I thought was kind of crazy. And at the time I emailed them and they said, oh, we've had a lot of people request this. We're working on it. Well, here we are. They have released it. So I commend them. I have to imagine a lot of people had reached out the same way I did and had asked about it. So, I always like seeing when companies are listening to feedback from their users and acting on it. I think that's important.
Yeah, and that one just plain made sense. I can understand why they didn't have it right out of the gate. If they were just trying to get the product into people's hands, but that one makes a lot of sense to have, so you can kind of keep an eye on, especially if you're, a data-driven person. We like to see all of the things that are going in our house. That's why we do home automation sometimes. Mm-hmm. So yeah, This update makes a lot of sense. I'm glad to see Ecobee come through.
Yeah, and I think there was some other stuff involved in the update, but I don't want to spend too much time on it. We'll include a link up in the show notes at HomeTech.fm/shows/59 if anybody wants to follow that link through and read more about the update. But overall, great product. I've had great experience with them as a company, and I think this is an exciting update for users. So with all of that said, Seth, why don't we go ahead and jump into our interview? Again, we had Franz Garsombke. He's the co-founder and Chief Technical Officer at Rachio, which is the maker of the Eero Smart Irrigation System. And we're pleased to present to you our conversation with him. Franz, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here on Home Tech. We're excited to have you. I actually don't remember if it was you personally or maybe someone else on your team, but Seth and I were out at CEDIA back in September, and we had stopped by the Rachio booth, and we had, kind of chatted with you guys for a while, and that was, back in September, and we had talked about having you guys on the show, but time kind of got away from us. But, I thought now would be the perfect time to bring you back on here. We're kind of approaching spring, and summer's right around the corner, so I'm sure a lot of people are starting to think about their lawns again, and I think it's a good time to bring you on and talk about your product and of course the importance of energy efficiency in the smart home, and looking forward to diving into that with you. But before we get into the specifics, maybe you can give our listeners just a bit of like a personal introduction about yourself, maybe prior to working with Rachio and kind of your background in the tech space.
Yeah, sure. So I started close to 20 years ago in software. I've had various roles, enterprise architect, pure consulting roles, managing team leads, and then my last role was I was CTO of a company called IntelliReal, and we did property valuation for about 100 million residential properties.
Oh, wow.
And that company was acquired by Equifax, I think close to about three or 4 years ago. Okay. So cool. Then I had been working with our co-founder, Chris Klein, and that's kind of how he segued into this new and exciting role.
Very good. And so that brings us here to where we are. And now you're the CTO at Rachio. Maybe you can give us just a brief overview of Rachio as a company, kind of how many people you guys have working there and sort of what the mission of the company is.
Yeah. So we started, I think, officially about 2 years ago, me and Chris. And since then, we've gathered a lot of traction. Our first product is the Eero, which is a smart irrigation controller. We released it I think it was right around last May. And since then, we're in over 1,000 Home Depots. We're in the Apple Store. We'll be in Best Buy I think this coming May. And we're right at about 15 employees, and we're looking to bring on, maybe a half dozen more here to close the year out.
Very cool. And you guys are based out in Denver, is that correct?
Yeah, we're in Denver. I'm looking at Coors Field right now. We're about 3 blocks away, and opening day is tomorrow. So I think awesome. Everyone's frightened.
Yeah. Yeah, I lived out in Colorado for about 8 years. It's a great place, and I know opening day down in Denver at Coors Field is a big deal. So hopefully you can get out there and enjoy a baseball game and hopefully some nice weather. I know there's kind of been a burgeoning of the tech scene there in the Denver Boulder area. We've been seeing a lot of news come out of there with smart home companies, and I think that looks like a really great place to be as a startup. Can you speak to how it's been kind of getting your company started there in Colorado?
Yeah, it's been if you look at Denver. In the last 5 years, there's some things that have been put in place, like Denver Startup Week is brand new and started with a few hundred people, and now I know it's numbers in the thousands. And just walking down the street downtown, you look at a company like Telemetry, they are just acquired by Amazon. We have another company right down the street called Notion, and they did a pretty successful Kickstarter campaign, so they're releasing their product in July. I see other companies on Kickstarter. There's another one called Woof. They're doing like a smart dog collar. Mm-hmm. So you really just see kind of the energy and the passion, and there's just numerous meetings every week on co-founder companies and hardware startups, and it's really becoming quite a spectacle to see all the innovation happening here.
Very cool. Well, I do know from spending some time out in Colorado that water is a very, very big deal out there, and it's certainly a topic that's on a lot of people's minds, and conservation is definitely a prevalent topic, and something that people in Colorado, and not just Colorado, of course, all over the country right now, or in the world for that matter, are having to think about. So, that kind of ties into Irro and what we're really going to talk about here in this conversation. And before we dive into the specifics, I mean, maybe you can talk about just sort of the high level mission of Irro and the problem that you guys are trying to solve with the product.
Yeah, and if you go back 2 years, Chris Klein, he's the other co-founder, and he's our current CEO, and he was at Denver Startup Weekend, and he was on one of the teams, and he was walking down the street one day, and it was raining, and all these sprinklers going off, and that was kind of the aha moment where there has to be a better way to do this. So the first take was, well, we could take a Wemo and issue a shutoff command when it's raining, right? And kind of tie that into all the existing sprinkler controllers. You start looking at all the issues with that, and it's, well, I think the only way to really do this correctly is to build hardware that's connected and have an intelligent cloud kind of backing it. And when you think about kind of all the amount of effort that's been put into writing the software, I think out of all the smart connected products out there, I think this really fits kind of the example of using technology to back something where you can actually save. You can do a really good job of taking a problem where your normal everyday user is not going to go off and measure the evapotranspiration that's happening around them and happening on a day-to-day basis for their yard, and measuring that against are my zones, is the soil moisture being depleted, is it the correct time to kind of water the yard, and then measuring the applied irrigation on the yard and the effective precipitation that's happening. So looking at the IoT landscape, I think this is kind of one of those areas where you're like, oh yeah, that's an extremely good use of technology for that problem.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a topic that Seth and I touch on a lot here on Home Tech, is really, where home technology can really come into play to solve real problems. I mean, a lot of people like home technology just to sort of have the gadgets, right? And you've got the really nice sound system or the cutting edge TV, but I think that stuff is exciting in its own right, of course. But I think it's something special when we look at people utilizing technology to solve real world, large scale problems, such as water usage and efficiency. And so I commend you guys for taking that challenge on. I think it's a good time to kind of jump into the specifics of the product. So, we've touched on it. It's obviously an intelligent irrigation controller, but what does this product actually consist of? If I go out to the store and I buy an Irro, what am I actually buying?
Yeah, so great question. So the Irro has, the standard command and control, right? So it takes about 20, 30 minutes to replace your old controller. There's these 24 volt low voltage wires. You're essentially just putting the wires into the existing controller where it laid in the old controller. And so simple command and control, you can turn zones on off, you can do that kind of analysis. If squirrels are running into your yard or deer, you can kind of do that ad hoc kind of stuff. But what I think really excel is we have some smart features. One we like to call kind of this virtual rain sensor, where you can set the sensitivity. And I want it similar to we would do a physical rain sensor, and every day we track the weather that's happening around your house, and we'll be able to essentially skip a schedule if you hit a certain rain threshold. And the cool thing about that is when you look at a physical rain sensor, those can only turn on and off when they have the presence of rain at that moment. But doing kind of a more virtual world where we can look in the past and then today and the future, and we can kind of skip your schedule based on that data. Some other really cool things we can do is based on weather patterns for the last couple of weeks and for the upcoming weeks, we can kind of dial in what we call the seasonal adjustment, where if it's getting cooler, if it's getting hotter, we can water more.
Right.
And kind of lastly, the thing we're really excited about, and this will be rolling out in the next few weeks, we have this notion of flexible schedules where we're able to measure the water that's being applied to your yard, and then if there's any precipitation from rain, and then on a day-by-day basis, we'll be measuring how that water is being evaporated from your lawn, and we'll be able to apply irrigation only when your yard needs it, and measure that along the way. So this is something that a normal user could never, ever do, right? Where you're essentially saying, well, I'm going to water on Monday, and then the next time that my yard needs it is on like Thursday or a Friday. So, gone are the days where you're setting your yard to water every 2 days or every day or every third day, where it truly is kind of this flexible model where we can measure that stuff and only apply when necessary.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Very cool. I mean, it certainly sounds like there's quite a bit of intelligence built into this unit. And this is, again, another topic that Seth and I here are very, passionate about on Home Tech, and talking about kind of the difference between, just making a device that you can control. For instance, you mentioned like when you were initially thinking about this, and maybe you just hook up a little, Wemo plug and you can turn it on or off if it's raining. That's a controllable system versus something that actually has intelligence built into it, where it's doing some analysis and making decisions for you based on some input, maybe some parameters that you've put in to kind of maximize your efficiency and still get the same result. So I think that sounds very interesting. I just want to back up for 1 second and talk about also, just a general buying decision. Like, how much does this system cost, and are there different versions? I think you guys maybe have like one version that does 8 zones and another that does 16. Is that correct?
Yeah. So our 8-zone model is currently $249, and then we do have a 16-zone model that's $299.
Got it. And I can't imagine there's very many people out there who have more than 16 independent zones of irrigation, but I'm sure there are some. And if you do have more than 16, is the system expandable beyond that 16, or do you kind of hit a hard limit there?
You do hit a hard limit, but what we've had people do is you can connect multiple devices to the same account, and then you would kind of manage them individually.
Gotcha. So maybe like in your app, you would have something labeled like your front yard and something labeled like your backyard. And it's almost like managing them as 2 separate properties, maybe. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. Speaking of the installation, is this something that you guys have found generally when people are purchasing the product? Are they able to install it very easily themselves, or is it something that people want to go out and maybe hire a professional for, or are you seeing a mix there?
We are seeing a mix. Our first wave of customers kind of very comfortable, kind of like living on the cutting or bleeding edge of technology. And then, as we see kind of more mass adoption, we are getting people that are asking for referrals to have professional installation. But we have seen a mix, and, for the customers that are DIY, we have a really kind of stellar support team that we've seen kind of every wiring issue under the sun here. And I don't think there's one customer that we haven't been able to kind of set straight.
Yeah, definitely. I think that you're probably right. I mean, as with any tech product, you kind of have your early adopters, and I think we're sort of still in that phase right now with the smart home, where a lot of people who are buying these sort of products are probably people who enjoy tinkering and want to get in there and do it themselves and aren't afraid of a little bit of wiring. But yeah, I think as these products become more mainstream and more people are purchasing them, there's probably going to be a need for installation services and things like that. And Seth and I are actually both professional systems integrators, work in the CEDIA channel, so we're very familiar with that process, and we kind of are always interested with products like Rachio or an Eero to see if this is just a kind of a straight to consumer product 100%, or if there's still some people out there who are kind of in need of a little bit of help if they go out and purchases. So it sounds like it's been a little bit of a mix there. As far as if I'm a purchaser and I'm looking at the product, and I know that I have an irrigation system at my house currently, but that's all I know. Like, I don't know anything about irrigation. So I don't know any specs or anything like that. Are these systems pretty standard, or is this something that like I need to sort of do a compatibility check before I run out and buy an Eero?
Yeah, I would say with existing systems, we're 100% compatible. And then, anything, we've seen a lot of very, very, very old systems. Some look like, a control center from a nuclear reactor. And, we've had a lot of people just send us emails with wiring in these old systems and then just asking us if it's compatible or not. And I think most of the time, the answer is yes.
Gotcha. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about installation. How does the kind of the software and app setup of this system work? Are you guys on iOS and Android both? And can you touch on, like, as an end user, when I'm doing sort of my initial, I'm imagining there's some sort of system registration or maybe inputting some preferences or information about your property. Can you sort of walk us through that process?
Yeah, so we definitely support iOS and Android. We also have a fully functional web app. So for the initial customer, you'll just fill in registration, username and a password, and then from there, we're using the proprietary technology where you literally hold your phone up to the device, and it'll use a proprietary blink up technology, and it flashes your Wi-Fi credentials. From there, it connects to our server. And the really cool thing is once you're connected, we actually have a process where it'll ask you if you want to walk through your yard, and then it'll start to turn one zone on. And then once that zone is on, it'll say, do you see it? And you say yes. You can label the zone, and then we ask you some characteristics of the zone: soil type, slope type, what kind of nozzle do you have? Is there what kind of sun exposure? And using those characteristics is actually how we start to build a schedule around your yard. Very
cool. And now, as this schedule is being built, based on my input, let's say for whatever reason, I want to tweak it, or maybe it's just, it's working great in certain parts of my yard, but after a few months, I feel like there's maybe one part of my yard that just isn't getting quite enough. Are users able to go in there and kind of make manual adjustments to these schedules, or like, how does that process work?
Yeah, and that's something that I highly recommend as well. Each individual zone has unique characteristics, and we have kind of the things I just talked about. That's more of the kind of, I would call the basic setup, or slightly intermediate. But we also have more advanced settings so that you can control, like, all the way down to root zone depth, efficiency of your sprinklers, this thing called managed allowed depletion. So there are, I think we have as many controls and dials as you would need to fully kind of dial the system in, the size of your yard, square footage, those kind of things.
Gotcha. So it sounds like, if you have sort of a basic user who just wants to kind of plug and play and maybe set up a few things and then just kind of walk away and let the system sort of do its thing, it's going to do that. But if you have sort of a power user who really wants to get in there and kind of drill down on the details, you kind of give them that ability as well.
Yeah. And like one of my personal missions is to make kind of every one of those power users where you set it up and then, we kind of circle back with you. And I think that everyone could benefit by, almost a yard audit, right? Where either you or someone else is coming there. And really, I think the system is at its most efficient when it has good data coming into it.
Sure. One other question I had about the actual installation of the product, it was just a quick question. I'm envisioning, not even necessarily just the larger homes, but even like medium-sized homes where a lot of times the irrigation controller might be out in like a utility closet, where I guess the unit uses Wi-Fi, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And is it Wi-Fi only? Do you guys have an Ethernet port on there, or is it limited to Wi-Fi?
Yeah, it's currently limited to Wi-Fi.
Gotcha. Which I think is pretty common. I think it's just something that people kind of need to be aware of because, like I said, a lot of times your irrigation controller might be out in a utility closet, boxed in concrete or whatever. And I think that, as a professional systems integrator, we see that all the time, and we're very conscious of Wi-Fi. But I think somebody coming in to buy it may want to consider that. And I guess worst case scenario, you got to add a little Wi-Fi repeater or something to get the range out there. But, definitely just something to be aware of. Are you guys selling this strictly direct? I know we talked about like some people wanting to call and like get assistance with the installation from a professional. Are you guys looking at the CEDIA channel at all? Maybe working through any dealers there, like through dealer channels, or are you just kind of staying straight retail and straight to consumer?
We are starting to look at dealer channels for sure, and large irrigation distributors, professional channels, because we know that a good amount of these are definitely installed by professionals. So that's one thing that we're really actively looking into.
Yeah, I could definitely see it as somebody who sells the smart home every day. This would be a nice little thing to be able to tack on to certain jobs, and I think a lot of our clients would be excited about this technology. I don't think it's necessarily something that's being presented to them by kind of the existing landscape companies in our area, and I think you guys would, from where I sit, I think you'd be wise to kind of look at that channel. But obviously, there's plenty of considerations there. Speaking of dealership channels, I know earlier you alluded to your Home Depot partnership. I think you said you're in like 1,000 Home Depots now and Apple stores, and I believe you said Best Buy as well. So it clearly seems like you guys have been doing well with that channel. How is that working out for you with the retail growth?
It's working really well. Like you were alluding to before, there's, I don't know if we've actually kind of turned the corner yet where there's this kind of smart home automation adoption. But I think the retailers are doing the best they can to kind of keep up and fully understand products, right? Before a couple of years ago, you would never go into a Home Depot and buy a Nest or anything, even remotely electronic. So I think it's new, and I think they're doing what they can, and they're learning as quickly as possible to kind of to get that sell through up.
Yeah, definitely. 2014 was a huge year for retail, and we saw companies, a lot of big box companies, to get Staples, Best Buy, Home Depot, Lowe's, all kind of staking their claim in the smart home. So I think we're definitely, if we haven't already hit the turning point, or the tipping point, we're getting very close. And I think it's definitely an interesting thing to watch, no matter what your interest or position is in the smart home. One other question that I wanted to touch on here, more on the technical side, that again, as professional integrators, and a lot of our listeners are professional integrators as well. What's your guys' stance about like open integration and having an API and allowing third-party control systems to tie in?
Yeah, so one of my kind of personal mantras here has been integration. So we're fully integrated with Nest. With the program where we're integrated with their smoke alarms, but we're also integrated with their Nest resource usage API. So if you opt in, we can actually send them water usage data. We've integrated with IFT, so if you want, you can kind of roll all kinds of crazy recipes with the Eero. But we also have a fully public open API where if you bought the product, you can go to our web app, get an OAuth token key, and then kind of do your own crazy stuff with our API.
Very cool. And I think if I remember correctly, actually saw Control 4 listed specifically on your website. You guys have some integrations going on with them?
Yeah. So some other partners, Control 4, iControl, and I think there's one or two other partners I'm building out right now. Very
nice. Cool. Well, we talked about, a lot of the technical side. We talked about the price of the hardware. Are there any subscription costs, like ongoing subscription costs, if you want to have this product, or is it just a one-time purchase?
Yeah, currently it's just a one-time purchase.
Very cool. We're kind of running up against our time here. I want to close out. Also wanted to just sort of circle back to kind of the broader theme of water conservation, and ask you, are there any like options for people who are looking to buy the product, maybe to get rebates for the the water conservation?
Yeah, we just got our EPA water sense certification, I think back in December. And it's there's a lot of municipalities right now that are offering rebates for a controller just like ours.
That's great. Well, again, Franz, I want to thank you for taking the time to join us here on Home Tech. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I hope people listening learned a little bit and took a little bit away from it. What's next for you guys at Rachio? What's getting you guys excited these days? A lot. We are kind of prototyping some new innovative products that's kind of all I can allude to for that. Sure.
We do have kind of some skunk works going on for there, and then just more. What I want to see is more integrations, and some things I'm personally excited about is looking at like integrated with moisture sensors, right? So kind of building this whole closed loop system where you have a certain number of sensors in your yard, and they're actively feeding us this real-time information. And then we're not kind of looking to a weather service, which is going to be less accurate than I think these in-ground sensors. So that, and then I mentioned kind of this pro distribution channels that we're looking at too.
Very cool. Well, certainly keep us posted here at Home Tech about that, and particularly on the professional side, and the installation services. I think is something a lot of our listeners would be interested to learn more about. But just generally, overall, really enjoyed learning more about the product. And if anybody listening did want to find out more or connect with you to maybe ask a follow-up question or two, what would be the best way for them to do that?
I'd like them to contact me directly. I like kind of interfacing with our user base and really just kind of having that personal touch. It's, it's Franz, Franz, at Rachio, RACHIO.com.
Very cool. And we will include that in the show notes at HomeTech.fm. Once again, Franz, thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great night.
All right, you as well.